Hello and welcome back to our YouTube channel for the 6th edition of our Premier League betting show. It's myself, Matt Hill, joined by my regular co-host, Brad Walker. And I actually missed last week's show while I was sunning myself on the Algarve, but I'm glad to say I've stopped slacking. I've dragged myself back to the rainy UK, and I'm here to provide some betting insight. Not that you need my help, Brad, because I believe you had a fantastic week while I was away. 4 winners out of 5, I think. Well done, you.
Yeah. It went well last week, so I'm ready to fall flat on my face again this weekend. I'm touching wood as we say this for hopefully a few more winners, but we'll see. We had a good win last night in the Carabao Cup, so.
You did? Yeah, you're on fire. You're on fire. Give yourself some credit. Yeah, you're doing well. But, pride comes before a fall, as we know in this game. So we'll just try our best to keep things going. If you've never watched the Premier League betting show before, basically we take the whole 10-game slate of the upcoming weekend and we go through the games one by one, alternating between myself and Brad. A couple of minutes of insight on each one. We try and get it done inside half an hour, so not keep you too long. So without further ado, let's dive into it. I'm going to take the early kickoff. Newcastle at home to Manchester City. What a great game to start the weekend. The champions come into this one warm, 8-13 favourites at the time of talking. The draw is 7-2, and Newcastle just north of 4-1 for an upset. Well, City remain top of the table despite dropping their first 2 points of the season in what was a pulsating draw with Arsenal last weekend. Obviously, John Stones scoring equaliser with the last kick of the game to rescue a point for City. But the talk wasn't really about the result, was it, in the aftermath? It was all about Rodri. Rodri's knee injury sustained early in the piece, which has subsequently turned out to be as serious as it looked. Unfortunately, Spanish midfielder has been ruled out for many months, probably the season, all things considered. And now City are desperately scrambling around, wondering which of their multi-million-pound midfielders are going to replace him. Poor them. But look, it is a massive blow. We've all seen the record of City with Rodri and without Rodri. It does make a big difference to them. And Arsenal have subsequently come into what are effectively now joint favourites for the Premier League title. But I must say, I'm not writing off City just yet. I think the last 4 years has taught us anything. When City do have adversity in their path, they tend to deal with it very well. And I expect that to be the case again here against Newcastle. On points alone, Newcastle have had a good start to the season. They've taken 10 points from 5 games, but I must say I wasn't that surprised when they got beat off Fulham last week because the signs have been there. They kind of stuttered past Southampton in their opener. They drew with Bournemouth. They needed 2 late goals to turn things around against Wolves. And a similar story against Spurs, to be honest. They won it 2-1, but at 1-1, there was only one team looked like going to win it. And it was Spurs before Newcastle kind of hit them on the break. So I think a little bit for Eddie Howe to worry about there. And I think a lot of Newcastle fans would tell you that the table probably flatters them a little bit at the moment. I've been worried by the form of Nick Pope in goal. He seems to be chucking in a few clangers, which is not like him. And Bruno Guimaraes as well, their influential midfielder, he's gone AWOL, hasn't he? And he actually gave a horrendous pass away for a goal last weekend as well. So, yeah, a little bit worrying signs. And if there's one team to exploit those fragilities in the Newcastle squad at the moment, I think it is Manchester City. In terms of who will replace Rodri, could be anyone. Kovacic, John Stones could go in there. Rico Lewis could go in there. Ilkay Gundogan is capable of playing holding midfield. So they're not exactly short of options, are they? And I don't expect it's going to have much of an immediate impact on City. I expect them to have too much quality for Newcastle, to be honest. I do respect Newcastle's attack. I think the likes of Gordon and Isak are a danger for anybody, particularly at St James's Park. So I think the best way to play this game is to get with Manchester City to win with over 2.5 goals in the match. That is currently available across the board at 11-10, but that was a little bit bigger yesterday. That price is contracting, so it could easily be odds on by the time this game kicks off. Brad, over to you for Man City's main title rivals. I hope you won't mind me saying that. Arsenal, who entertain Leicester.
I'm glad you're saying that. The less pressure on Liverpool, the better for me. But anyway, yeah, moving on to Arsenal. You mentioned their draw with City last weekend. I said to a friend earlier today, you need probably a 6-hour period to unpack everything that happened within that game. There was so much going on. I've written my preview for this game, Arsenal-Leicester, for OddsNow, which we should be live on the site by the time you're seeing this. And I wrote, one of my first lines was, please, Arsenal players, just don't kick any balls away this weekend and save us all the earache of everything that's gone on over the last month or so.
Agreed.
Having said all of that, the rhetoric around them, I think, was in that second half was a little bit harsh. Going down to 10 men, Man City are probably the worst team in the world to go down to 10 men against. I'm not sure what other options Mikel Arteta had other than to sit in and look to defend that lead. And it almost came off, didn't it? It was in the last seconds almost for John Stones, found that equaliser to prevent Arsenal picking up all 3 points. I think it's still a positive result for them. A draw at the Etihad is a positive result for anyone at the Etihad. And it was a good result for me as well, because that is one of the bets that I won last week. But I certainly fancy their chances of returning to winning ways in this one. Leicester, say, have not had a quite so positive return to the Premier League. Is probably an understatement. They did salvage one of the 3 points that they've picked up so far last weekend in a 1-1 draw at home to Everton, and they trailed for a bulk of that game before they found an equaliser within and around 15 minutes remaining. But they do only have 3 points from 5 games, as I said, and they've still not won any of their games so far. And only one of those points has came away from home, and they haven't kept a clean sheet in the Premier League this season. So I think it's pretty worrying for Leicester fans who are travelling down to Arsenal to face a side who scored the second most amount of goals in the Premier League last season. Arsenal have also won each of their last 5 games against Leicester in the Premier League, and Leicester have just 1 win in 26 away matches at Arsenal. So if you're a Leicester fan, this probably isn't the most encouraging part of the video for you, let's say. But to be fair, they have scored 6 goals in their 5 games so far. They've scored in every single Premier League game, but they face an imperious Arsenal defence here. Not many sides could have frustrated Man City with 10 men.
So you're giving them a nugget of hope there, saying they'd scored in every game, and then you say, an imperious defence. There's not a lot of positive here, is there?
No. Well, I was clutching at straws with that one line, but then I kind of took them straight back away.
Back to it, get back to it.
Yeah, straight back on it. I'll give you one reason for optimism. I'm going to give you 10 to be quite pessimistic. But yeah, Arsenal, they've also got 3 clean sheets in the Premier League so far. So yeah, I'm going to back the home side, in this one. Probably not a massive surprise. I'm going to back them to do it in comfortable fashion as well. Arsenal -2 on the handicap comes in at 6-4 generally. I don't think they've been as eye-catching moving forward, Arsenal, in forward areas, so far this season, but they still possess a wealth of quality. I think the addition of Raheem Sterling as well, who got his first goal earlier this week in the League Cup, will provide a healthy option from the bench. He may even start this one, depending because of Trossard's red card and suspension. But yeah, Arsenal -2 on the handicap comes in at 6-4. That's where I'll be going with this one. I just don't fancy this Leicester side, if I haven't made it clear enough already.
I got that vibe. Okay, -2 on the handicap for Brad. So comfortable wins expected for the 2 chief title chasers. Moving on to Brentford, West Ham then. And this is a game between 2 teams that I think will... well, if you compare their records, 6 defeats in 10 between them, so you wouldn't really be rushing to say that either of them had made a good start. But there's definitely one team feeling more upbeat about things than the other at the moment, I think, because Brentford's losses have came against Liverpool, Manchester City, and Tottenham, all away from home. So who would have really expected them to take anything from those games? Their 2 home games, meanwhile, they beat Crystal Palace 2-1, which was a little bit of a surprise on opening weekend, and then they very comfortably beat Southampton 3-1. To be honest, that scoreline didn't flatter them in that particular game either. So I think Thomas Frank will be really pleased with his side start to the season. Even in the losses, they've put incredible performances. And there was a lot of questions about how they were going to cope with the loss of Ivan Toney, who's gone to the Saudi Pro League. But to be honest, it's been a seamless transition thus far. The front 2, when they're available, of Brian Mbeumo and Johan Wissa, is an absolute handful for anybody. But even though Wissa's injured now, I still think they've got loads of good attacking options in there that can come in. A lot of young, exciting, pacey players. So yeah, Brentford are a team that I really like, and I really like the manager as well. Meanwhile, absolutely disastrous start for Julian Lopetegui at West Ham. Obviously, they got a good result against early in the season, and there's been this buzz around Lopetegui, hasn't there, coming into West Ham, because the Hammers fans so desperately wanted a change from David Moyes. They wanted somebody to come in and bring attacking, entertaining football to East London. I'm not sure Lopetegui is the man to do that. Anyone who's watched his teams previously will know he doesn't exactly pride himself on ultra-attacking football, but there we are. He is exceptional. He does have an exceptional pedigree of jobs that he's taken, but I think he's already finding himself under pressure here because performances have not been great and results have been terrible. I mean, 3-0, that 3-0 loss to Chelsea, I could not believe how many times they were sliced open by Chelsea. It was almost like they were playing with a man short in defence. The space that Chelsea had out wide and the ease with which they were able to pick men out in the box from crosses, and Nicholas Jackson having an absolute field day, somebody who I think we're going to come on to a little bit later in the video once again. But yeah, look, when you marry these 2 squads up against each other, you'd still say West Ham have more individual quality. And this is a high pressure game for them. I mean, I don't want to say Julian Lopetegui needs a result, but I can only imagine the reactions of some of the West Ham fans if they go and get beat at Brentford here, because it will make a bad start a terrible start, really. So an important game for them. I'm expecting the West Ham attackers to step up and give a good account of themselves. And you're looking at the likes of Lucas Paquetá, Crescencio Somerville, who's looked lively, Mohamed Kudus, I'm a massive fan of. But it's Jared Bowen who takes my eye, and I want to back Bowen, anytime goal scorer, available at 5-2 currently with Bet365. I think he's really enjoying taking that captain's armband on. And even though results haven't gone well, I think Bowen is rising to the challenge, if you will. He scored a nice goal against Crystal Palace. He set up Danny Ings' late equaliser the other week as well. And when he's doing this, he's running over to the fans. He's pointing at the captain's armband. He's kissing the badge. So it obviously means a lot to him to have been given this captaincy. And it's sometimes you see captaincy weigh players down. I think it's having the opposite effect for Bowen. And he's never been shot shy either. So against a Brentford side that, as good as they've been, have given up quite a few goals in the early weeks, I'm going to back Jared Bowen to score any time at 5-2. That's my bet for this one. Back over to Bradford, Chelsea versus Brighton. Brad, I think we will have some Nicholas Jackson chat, won't we?
We will, yeah. He's been a key cog in what I think has been a surprisingly positive start for Enzo Maresca at Stamford Bridge. They've picked up now consecutive wins in the Premier League following that 3-0 win at West Ham last week, which you touched upon there. They now have 3 clean sheets as well in all competitions in as many games following a 5-0 win, admittedly against Barrow in the League Cup, but a clean sheet's a clean sheet and a win's a win. And they've certainly got options from the bench. We've all mentioned the amount of players on their books. I think you look at the win at Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago. Christopher Nkunku came off the bench to net a late winner. I think he was assisted by another sub in Jadon Sancho too. Whether Maresca's able to keep that amount of players happy in the long run, I can't imagine a lot of those players will be satisfied with consistently finding themselves on the bench. That remains to be seen, but you definitely cannot doubt the quality that Chelsea have within their ranks. Brighton have also made a positive start, of course, under Fabian Herzler, which we've said now pretty much every episode we've filmed on this show. It has cooled somewhat in recent weeks with consecutive draws in their last 3. The last 2 in particular saw them draw to the likes of Ipswich and Nottingham Forest at home. I think they're slightly underwhelmed given the start that they made with wins against Everton, Man United in the draw at Arsenal. But nevertheless, there's been plenty of positives to take from their start under Herzler. And Danny Welbeck has been one of the stars so far for them this season. He netted his first career free kick in the 2-2 draw against Nottingham Forest last week, which is remarkable, really. I think he's got 3 goals already to his name in the Premier League. And Chelsea haven't been that convincing at home over the last couple of years. There have been a couple of sides who, on paper, perhaps weren't fancied against them and have gone and got results at Stamford Bridge. Can Brighton do the same this weekend? That remains to be seen. Chelsea do come in odds-on favourites at 3-4, but I am still hesitant to back them, as anyone who's watched the previous episodes know. I think I hold my hands up. They've certainly been better than I thought they would be under Maresca, but I'm still not going to back them at 3-4, and I think there's value there. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Brighton do get something, because they're a very, very good side themselves. So instead, I'm going to go down that player prop line, Matt, as you hinted on there. Nicholas Jackson, anytime goal scorer, comes in at 7-4 with Bet365. And I think he's a man who perfectly typifies my thoughts surrounding Chelsea this season, really. I wasn't that struck on him last year. I thought he had potential, but he was very raw. But after watching him in recent weeks, I hold my hands up. I might have got him wrong. His movement's fantastic off the ball. He's been fantastic in front of goal too. He's got 4 goals and 2 assists from his first 5 Premier League games. 2 of them.
I'll double down on that, Brad. I really thought I couldn't see it, but he's just been phenomenal the last couple of weeks, hasn't he? I think confidence is so big for a player like that.
It absolutely is. You can tell. You can see just the way they strike the ball sometimes in those finishes at West Ham. They really gave the air of a player.
The second one was a beautiful finish, wasn't it? A little outside of the foot.
Exactly. Yeah, like you said, that confidence there. I think you only try that finish on if you are incredibly confident. And I certainly think there's value in backing him again this weekend. He scored in Chelsea's last league game at Stamford Bridge as well, which was a 1-1 draw against Crystal Palace. And 7-4, I was a little surprised that he comes in that wide really to score any time against Brighton. So yeah, I'll certainly be leaning in that direction. I think Brighton have only kept 2 clean sheets in the league this season, away at Everton on the opening day against 10-man Everton, and at home to newly promoted Ipswich. They've conceded a few at the back. They play that high line as well, so there'll be plenty of space for Nicholas Jackson to run into, as he did against West Ham, like you said, Matt, many a time. So yeah, 7-4, anytime goal scorer Jackson. I think there's plenty of value and a very fair price from Bet365 there. Sorry.
Like it. I like it. I'm going to continue that goal scorers theme as well. We've switched up from big wins to specific goal scorers. On to Everton, Crystal Palace for me then. And again, a little bit of a recurring theme here for my games. Teams that have underwhelmed, in my opinion, and Everton and Palace both probably hit that metric. They occupy spots in the bottom 6 after 5 match days. So inevitably, this feels like a big game for both of them. One that you'd love to win, but equally losing could make it feel like it's starting to become a disastrous season. I don't think Palace have been that impressive or that bad. I think they've been pretty middling in all of their outings this season, to be honest. I don't really worry about them being dragged into the relegation battle. I think they've got enough quality in key areas, but I do think they've regressed a little bit from where they were at the back end of last season, and that's understandable because don't forget they've lost Michael Olise to Bayern Munich, possibly one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, to be honest. So that was always going to be very tough for Palace to replace him. The transfer business was mixed, I think, in the summer. So, yeah, we shouldn't be too surprised to see them regress a little bit. And obviously, Jean-Philippe Mateta had a really hot streak, didn't he, at the end of last season, which he did get a brace last time out. So maybe that's the start of his hot streak again. But, yeah, the goals, they've only scored 4 goals in the Premier League in 5 outings, and included in them is an own goal, an Eze worldie, and a penalty from Mateta as well. So fair to say the goals aren't flowing for the Eagles. I would just give a word to Eze, though. 2.33 worth of XG, even though he only has 1 strike. He's hit the bar and the post already this season, and he looks as good as he ever is, and what a player he is. I think Palace fans need to enjoy him while they can. He's surely destined for the very, very top in the next couple of years, I would say. Everton's troubles well documented, of course, but they did at least snap that rotten run of losses with a draw last time out against Leicester. I'm sure they were frustrated that it was only a draw. It probably should have been a win. They had the better of the play and conceded fairly late in the piece. But the man that impressed me most in that Everton team was Iliman Ndiaye, of course, ex-Sheffield United. Then he went off to France. Everton brought him back to the Premier League this season, and wow, he's really impressed me since breaking into the team in the last 3 games. His direct running and aggression has just been a breath of fresh air for this Everton side, who've often looked quite toothless and very reliant on Dominic Calvert-Lewin in forward areas. They now just have another dimension to them with Ndiaye, and add in the fact that Jared Branthwaite and Idrissa Gueye are both back in training and some more favourable fixtures coming up, I do genuinely believe that better times might be around the corner for Everton. I don't think they're going to be going flying up the table, don't get me wrong, but I think they could have a better few weeks ahead. Maybe starting here, and instead of backing them, I'm going to back Ndiaye again. I'm going to back him in 2 bets, actually. Over 2.5 shots in the game, and I'm going to also back him to score any time. And the reason I'm doing that is because I was really impressed with the amount of shots he got off against Bournemouth. I think he took 3 against Bournemouth. He took 2 last time out as well. So he's certainly not shot shy. And again, we talk about Nicholas Jackson being a confidence player. I think Ndiaye is a confidence player as well. And you can just sometimes, the way a player moves, the way a player strikes the ball, as you said, Brad, you can see it flowing through their veins. I think Ndiaye is going to come in off the back of his goal, full of confidence, at home again, and just be firing off the shots left, right, and centre. So over 2.5 shots is a bet for me, but also the 4-1 about him scoring any time. I think that's really juicy. And to be fair, off those last 3 games, you could have an anytime scorer treble, couldn't you, if you really wanted to go for it? Brad, I think we're going to stop the run of anytime goal scorers here, but you're still predicting goals in Nottingham Forest versus Fulham.
Yeah, both of these 2 sides come into this game after positive results last weekend. Forest picked up an impressive point on the road against Brighton in a 2-2 draw. They did take the lead in that game before finding themselves 2-1 behind before Raymond Souza rose from the bench to score his first goal and secure the point for them. It's not all great news for them, though. They did lose Morgan Gibbs-White through a red card for a second buckle of offence, which could easily have been a straight red. It was quite a fiercely contested game, really. Both of those games were on Sunday. I think both managers were also sent off in this one. Sunday was very hot-headed across both of the fixtures that we saw. He will be a big miss in this one, though, Gibbs-White, for them. Alongside Chris Wood, he's probably one of their most important players for Forest. But they have started this season very, very well. To be honest with you, I was tipping them to go down at the start before a ball was kicked. And look, they still could, of course. We're only 5 games in, but I think they've certainly exceeded any expectations. So far, they're unbeaten after 5, winning 2 and drawing 3. They are yet to win at home, though. They've drawn their first 2 matches at the City Ground against Bournemouth and Wolves. One side who have managed to win at home this season is Fulham, who they'll, of course, be facing Forest this weekend. They beat Newcastle 3-1 at Craven Cottage last week. I think, Matt, you touched on it when you talked through Newcastle, at the start of the video. That was their first win at home against Newcastle in 4 matches, and Raul Jimenez is back among the goals for them once again. The Mexican striker, scored in each of his last 2 appearances in the Premier League. Fulham have also made a positive start. Their only loss came on the opening day at Old Trafford in a game which they could easily have came away with a point to their name on any other day. This one is a tough one to call for all the reasons that I've just outlined, really. They're both doing very, very well. Gibbs White, as I touched on, will be a miss for Nottingham Forest, but you look at the attacking talent in both of these 2 sides' ranks, and I can't expect anything other than goals, really. Chris Wood in brilliant form as well for Forest this season, as is Jimenez, who I touched on there. Forest, they've also got Callum Hudson-Odoi on wing, who scored a winner at Anfield a couple of weeks ago. Anthony Elanga, too, is a threat. Fulham have got Raul Jimenez, as I touched upon, Adama Traore, Reece Nelson, and Emile Smith-Rowe came in from Arsenal in the summer and both scored at the weekend against Newcastle. And then you look at the 2 games between these 2 sides last season, which saw 9 goals scored in total across those 2 games. Forest won 3-1 at the City Ground, and Fulham also recorded a resounding 5-0 win at Craven Cottage earlier in the season. Put all that together, and one thing that I can see is goals in this one. Over 2.5 goals comes in at even money generally across the board. For everything I've just said, I think there's plenty of value in that price. You watch it be a 0-0 now and the winning run ends. But yeah, that's where I'll be putting my money this weekend. Over 2.5 plus goals at the City Ground for Nottingham Forest versus Fulham.
Yeah, I like that. And I like goals right across this slate, to be honest, which, again, like you just said, makes me fear that it's going to be a dreadful weekend. Now I've said that, but it does, like, a lot of these games just have the look of goals, don't they? And you don't always feel that way, to be honest. There's other weeks where I look at it and I'm struggling to see the goals. But yeah, this one, let's see. Fingers crossed for a good weekend. Back to me then for the late kickoff, which is Wolves at home to Liverpool. And boy, have you got 2 sides with contrasting starts here. Wolves absolutely disastrous first few weeks of the season. They are bottom of the pile heading into this weekend, so you probably don't want to be welcoming an informed Liverpool to Molineux, do you really? Gary O'Neill, he had plenty of credit in the bank midway through last season. I mean, to think that they could be in this position around the start of this year would have been, a bit of a stretch. But yeah. I remember O'Neill going on Sky Sports and showing his tactics and everyone purring over him and what a great manager he is. And look, you don't become a bad manager overnight, but the facts are the last 15 top flight matches, they've won just 1 and lost 11. It is a dreadful run of form. It's had them bottom of the league. They now play Liverpool. It's unlikely to get any better here. At what point does he become under serious pressure? I think club owners at the bottom end of the Premier League get trigger fingers and get twitchy very easily. And I think that O'Neill desperately needs to start getting some results on the board. They're only losing games by fine margins, but ultimately it's the points that matter at the end of the day, isn't it? And there's only so much patience that chairmen tend to show. So hopefully he can turn that around. He has had some bad luck, I think it's fair to say. Likes of Pedro Neto and Max Kilman being sold without obvious replacements in the summer is a real blow and tough one to solve. Kilman in particular, and I think the defensive woes I'm going to come on to are largely down to his departure. But Liverpool, on the other hand, well, they bounced back from a shock home defeat to Nottingham Forest by sweeping aside Bournemouth effortlessly 3-0 last weekend. It was all over by half-time in that one. Luis Diaz scoring twice with Darwin Núñez, getting the other one. Diaz in particular aside this season in electric form, hasn't he? Not very often that Liverpool score 3 and Mohamed Salah isn't on the score sheet, but that was the case. And that can only be a good thing for Arne Slot, who's enjoyed a fabulous start to life on Merseyside. He's won 6 of his 7 games in all competitions, and they thrashed West Ham in midweek in the Carabao Cup 5-1, even though they rotated. So confidence is high. Wolves' confidence is on the floor. This all points towards a Liverpool win, doesn't it? Well, it probably does, but they are very, very skinny in the betting. So I'm going to kind of give the win market and the handicap markets a bit of a wide berth. And instead, I'm going to play the cards market. And I'll put my hand up. This is my favourite bet of the weekend. Wolves' fullbacks have been getting booked for fun. In fact, the last 2 games, both the left back and the right back, Ait Nouri and Semedo, have been booked, which probably is testament to the defensive struggles that they're having. And those defensive struggles aren't getting any better because Nelson Mosquera, their centre-half, has just been ruled out for the season. So it's going to be another defensive reshuffle. Ait Nouri in particular is a left back who I think is more of a left winger, to be honest. He's okay in a back 5, but as he's having to play in a back 4, he's constantly finding himself pinned by back in areas he doesn't really want to be in, making silly fouls. He could easily have been sent off against Aston Villa. He's now going to be marking Salah and Diaz. So him and Semedo, I don't think life gets any easier for them, does it, this weekend? So yeah, they're both around 3-1 to get booked this weekend, and you can also back that double at 13-1. So I think that's got to be worth a go. It's landed the last 2 weeks. They're playing Diaz and Salah, and then when Diaz and Salah get tired, you're going to get Jota and Gakpo coming on. There's no respite for them, and when it rains, it pours, I'm afraid. And I think if you back both singles and the double, you only need one of them booked for profit. Both of them booked, you're absolutely laughing. So that's my best bet of the weekend. Brad, over to you. We're on to Sunday. Ipswich versus Aston Villa.
Yeah, Matt, we'll start with Ipswich. They're still looking for their first win in the Premier League, but they have picked up what could be 3 valuable points in their last 3 games with consecutive draws. It was a huge goal, wasn't it, from Sam Morsey last weekend, which salvaged a point at Southampton in the 95th minute, which reduces pressure ahead of the visit from Villa this weekend. They're in brilliant form, Emery's side. They trailed at home to Wolves for large portions at home last week. Ended up winning 3-1. Ollie Watkins scored again, but the Villa striker catching the headlines right now is John Duran. He scored in his last 3 Premier League games. I think he also scored a penalty against Wickham in the League Cup in midweek 2. Many are waiting to see if Villa will tail off, I think, after a superb last season, and ever since Emery's been in charge, really, it's not happened yet. They've won 4 and just lost just the 1 of their opening 5. That one defeat being at home to Arsenal in a game where if Watkins had his shooting boots on, they might have came away with at least a point. We're still waiting to see how they'll cope with balancing their domestic and European commitments. But as of right now, there can be no complaints of them. Given their positive form, it's no surprise, therefore, to see Villa come in at firm favourites at an odds-on price of 19-20. I am going to focus on the corner line, though, for this particular game. All of Ipswich's 5 matches so far have seen a combined corner count in double figures this season. They had 12. There was 12, in their first game against Liverpool, then 11, then 14, then 11, then 12. That's combining both teams' corner counts, not just Ipswich's. But I do think the expansive approach of both of these sides could see a lot of end-to-end action. Again, I do expect Villa to win, of course. They've got the added quality, particularly in forward areas. But I do think it could make for an entertaining watch. And I think getting 10.5 plus corners at even money with Betway is a great shout this weekend. Plenty of value given the statistics I've just read out there. I've got a feeling this game could catch fire as well, Matt. I agree with what you said earlier in the video that we could be in for some really good games this weekend. Fingers crossed. This is one of them, given it's one of the televised games on Sunday. So yeah, 10.5 plus corners in total comes in even money with Betway. That's where I'll be going for the 2 o'clock kickoff on Sunday.
Love that, Brad. Absolutely love that. You've really captured my imagination with that one, especially the combined corner count in the Ipswich games. I think that is a great selection. Fingers crossed that comes in for you. My last game of the weekend is a belter, isn't it, on Super Sunday? Manchester United at home to Tottenham. And I say a recurring theme of underperforming sides. This is another 2 teams who've probably made unsatisfactory starts by the standards they would hold themselves to. Identical records after 5 games. They've both won 2, lost 2, and had 1 draw. But starting with United, they just continue to underwhelm me. The performance was much improved against Crystal Palace, admittedly, but we're talking about a much improved performance, and they've drawn 0-0 with Crystal Palace. I mean, shows how far the standards have slipped at Old Trafford, I think. And fair play to Dean Henderson, former Man United goalkeeper. He had a great game against his old club. But then Andre Onana also had to make a superb double save to keep United level in that one. So they're not exactly convincing, and they've followed that up with such an underwhelming performance at home to FC Twente in the Europa League, a former team of Erik ten Hag's. But Twente aren't even the 3rd or 4th best team in the Netherlands at the moment. And then that Dutch league is pretty poor compared to the Premier League. So that is a dreadful result for Man United. I think they were about 1-6 to win that game. So that tells you all you need to know about where they're at the moment. And yeah, I know I've said this in previous weeks, but I just can't see how Erik ten Hag is still there beyond this summer. I think he must know it. The players must know it. The owners must know it. They're just waiting to find their new manager, aren't they? Surely. It just doesn't have any sort of ounce of feeling that he's going to be able to turn this around and get United challenging for titles again. Yes, he might win a League Cup or an FA Cup, but I just don't see them ever competing for the league with him in charge. And I have sympathy for him. The problems are obviously a lot more deep-rooted than Erik ten Hag, but it just feels like everyone's waiting for this era to end at the moment, and it may end prematurely if the results keep going the way they go. Whereas Tottenham, on the other hand, at least they've had some positivity in their season alongside some frustration. Really good wins against Everton and Brentford, winning comprehensively. Brentford, they went 1-0 down inside a minute, but then they won 3-1, and it could have been a few more, to be honest. A frustrating draw with Leicester on opening night, and they've lost to Newcastle and Arsenal. Now, both of those losses were just by the odd goal. Arsenal, obviously, Gabriel scoring from a corner. This is a team that are expecting to go very close to the title this year. So there's not a lot of shame in that, although it is their arch rival, of course. And Newcastle, well, that game at 1-1 looked like it was going Spurs' way before Newcastle broke on them. Now, the pessimistic Spurs fan may say we need to find a way of getting results from these games against Arsenal and Newcastle, or we're not going to progress and win titles. But me as a neutral, I'm looking at that thinking, okay, the performance levels, generally speaking, pretty good. Man United's performance levels are not, for my money. And yes, United have home advantage here, but that's not necessarily a good thing. When things are going badly, home fans can be a little bit of a disadvantage sometimes if they get on your back, and they do have a tendency to get frustrated at these bigger clubs when things aren't going well, don't they? And you could just see if Spurs score early, that atmosphere could get a little bit toxic there. So when I looked at the match prices of this, I thought, let's keep this really simple here. Spurs are just shy of 2-1. I think they're 15-8 best price at the time of talking. That'll do for me, to be honest. I couldn't be having Man United at 11-8 on what I've seen from them recently. Spurs at nearly 2-1. I think they've got a great chance of going here and winning at Old Trafford. And that'll be the bet for me. Keep it simple. Tottenham to win at 15-8. Brad, some Monday night football to round off the weekend. Bournemouth versus Southampton. I know we discussed whether or not this is a rivalry or not. I think we settled on no. But yeah, two South Coast sides. Should be an entertaining, good football on show, you'd think.
Yeah, I think geographically it is, but other than that, there's not much history between the two. So I'm sure Sky won't be using that to promote the game on Monday, but still.
More Portsmouth, I always think of with Southampton, but they're struggling these days, aren't they? Well, they're on the way back, I suppose. But yeah. No. Does anyone care about Bournemouth? No offense to Bournemouth. I like Bournemouth fans. I like the club, but I don't know if they have a rival per se.
Yeah, maybe next season Southampton, Portsmouth, and I'm not saying Portsmouth are getting promoted, so you can probably guess which direction I'm going in with that. But anyway, we'll start with Bournemouth. They've suffered 2 losses on the bounce in their last 2 games. The first was that 1-0 home loss to Chelsea, which they were unlucky, and they were probably the better team that day. Evan Nielsen missed a penalty for them as well, but they were outclassed at Anfield last week, Matt, as you touched upon, losing 3-0 to Liverpool. But it's still been a solid start, to Andoni Iraola's second term in charge. I think Evan Nielsen's form is a slight concern. He's Dominic Solanke's replacement, of course, coming in from Porto for big money. It's not quite happened for him yet. Like I said, he missed that penalty against Chelsea, and I'm sure he's desperate to get off the mark, but he might be facing the right team here in Southampton, which I'll touch upon in a moment. In terms of Southampton, they have picked up their first point last time out against Ipswich, but that game probably felt like a defeat at the end of the 90 minutes after Tyler Dibling's early strike was ruled out in the 95th minute by Sam Morsey's, I say, stunning equaliser. It was deflected from the edge of the box. But Southampton, there's one thing I've noticed from them from set pieces. They do tend to leave a lot of space on the edge of that box. And I noticed it against United a couple of weeks back. It's strange. It's not been rectified really. There wasn't a single man anywhere near the edge of their penalty area against Ipswich in those dying moments, which was a bit peculiar. In terms of looking for a way in from a betting angle, I decided to focus on a player or 2 players, actually. One of them has been very, very impressive for the home side so far. That's Antoine Semenyo. He's got 2 goals and an assist in his first 5 Premier League matches, the young winger. He had a goal ruled out at Anfield last week as well for offside too. Southampton do give a lot of chances away. They've conceded 20 or more shots in 3 of their 5 matches this season. Semenyo to score or assist at any time comes in at 21-20 with VBet. And I'm also going to put a little bit of faith in Evan Nielsen. Like I said, he's not quite hit form yet, but he will have opportunities against this Southampton side if he starts, just because of how leaky they are at the back. And it could be the perfect game for him to break his goal drought. So he comes in as an anytime goal scorer at 6-4 with Sky Bet to perhaps a little skinny price. But the Southampton side, they aren't convincing at either end of the pitch, I don't think. And you couple with Bournemouth's positive home record too on a Monday night, under the lights in a sort of rivalry, semi-rivalry. Yeah, I'm going to go for both of those 2 on the player prop lines there to finish off the weekend of what hopefully will be another winning weekend for us, Matt. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'd quite like it. I really like Semenyo. Massive fan of him. Think he's a fantastic player. Doing a great job out of position as well, technically, this season, isn't he? Right, well, we've just got to run through those best bets just before we wrap up. Getting mine up, Man City to win with over 2.5 goals, 11-10. Jared Bowen score anytime for West Ham at Brentford is 13-5, bet 365. Illiman and Die over 2.5 shots is 9-5 with bet 365. And then anytime goal scorer is 4-1 at Betfair. The Wolves Liverpool game where my best bets lie. Ryan Nuri to be booked at 3-1, Nelson Semedo to be booked 16-5, and both of them to be booked 13-1, all available at Ladbrokes or Coral. And then Tottenham to beat Manchester United is a 15-8 best price with bet 365. Brad, running through yours, Arsenal -2 on the handicap versus Leicester. Nicholas Jackson anytime scorer versus Brighton, the in-form blue striker. Over 2.5 goals, even money in Forest versus Fulham. Ipswich, I love this one. Ipswich Villa 10.5 plus corners. I've properly jinxed that one for you, Brad. Sorry, I keep saying how much I like it. And then finally on Monday night, Anton Semenyo to score or assist, which is quite a nice little cover there for a creative striker. And Eva Nielsen, anytime goal scorer, 6-4 with Sky Bet. Semenyo price was 21-20. Yeah, so Brad, fair to say Nicholas Jackson maybe his strongest selection there?
Yeah, he's won me over. I'm sure he's buzzing about that. But yeah, he has. He's convinced me.
He's won me over as well. He's won us all over. Well done, Nick. To quote Outcast, I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson. That is a niche reference. Probably not for our audience as well, but there we go. Yeah, so that pretty much wraps us up on that dour note there. I hope you enjoyed watching, and we'll be back once again next week, I think. I don't think we're quite at the second international break yet, or we may be. Shows how on the ball I am after my holiday. But yeah, these international breaks do come thick and fast, don't they, at this point of the season? So yeah, we'll be back for the next round of Premier League fixtures anyway. I can guarantee you that. Let us know who you're backing in the comments. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. If you're enjoying the show, please give us a thumb up. If you haven't already, please give us a subscribe. And we'll see you again very soon here on OddsNow.